Hello, everyone. Today, I want to discuss a very beautiful insight that I learned this year about the Passover Haggadah. So, our sages teach us that there's not a single redundant word in scripture, which means that if something is written, it's important. And if we're lucky, we'll develop the insight as to why, the deeper meaning beneath the superficial surface. So, regarding the Hebrew scriptures, we have the 5 books of Moses, we have the book of prophets, and then we also have all of the writings. So the writings include Psalms, Proverbs, Job, the Song of Songs, Ruth, Lamentations, Ecclesiastes, Esther, Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Chronicles. So today I want to focus on the Passover Haggadah. And every family, every tradition, every background has maybe a slightly different one. However, the nuts and bolts are almost identical. They're very similar. And the part that I want to focus on today comes after the song that we sing, Avadim Hainu. So it's in the beginning of the Passover Seder. We just finished reading the 4 questions. Usually the children, the youngest children in the family read them. And then the Avadim Hainu song is sung. And then there's this story, this peculiar story about Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yehoshua, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Tarfon. And it tells us that they were reclining at the Seder in Bnei Brak, and they discussed the exodus of Egypt all night long. So why does it tell us that they were in Bnei Brak? What difference does it make what city that they were in? So the insight comes to us from a story in the Talmud. And it's so interesting because I had studied this story in the Talmud, but I never connected the dots between the Passover Haggadah and the story in the Talmud to see how they were interrelated and interconnected. And it was for me mind blowing, a very beautiful connection. So that's why I felt the need to share it. So first, I have to give credit to Rabbi Yehuda Cornfield from Hollywood, Florida. He's the one whose class I went to understand this. So Rabbi Akiva was a student of the other rabbis, and the other rabbis lived in a city called Lod. And so usually the custom is that the student would come to his teacher for holidays and not vice versa. So why did the rabbis go to their student in Bnei Brak? So this is the story. So when Titus destroyed the second Bet HaMikdash, this is the time when these rabbis were alive, and the rabbis were walking by and they saw foxes leaving the Kodesh HaKadoshim, the holiest place in the temple in Jerusalem, which is now the mosque, the dome of the mosque is located there. So at that time, that place was so holy that if only the Kohen Gadol, the highest priest, was able to enter and leave, and only on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year. And if anyone else tried to enter, they would die because it was that holy. So when the Jewish people saw the invasion of Titus's army going into Jerusalem, they had full faith that they would also die, because if the sons of Aaron, the high priest, Nadav and Avihu, went into there and died, and they were themselves very holy people, very righteous people, then of course Titus is going to die. Like so they had no doubt that it was going to be okay. But unfortunately, Titus did destroy the temple, and when the rabbis were walking out, they saw foxes leaving the holiest place in the world, the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And the rabbis were so depressed and crushed and distraught that they started crying. But Rabbi Akiva, he laughed. And the other rabbis were perplexed, and they asked him, "How could you laugh at a time like this?" And he said, in the book of prophets, it is written that the second temple would be destroyed and that Mashiach, the Messiah, would rebuild the third and final temple. Now that I have seen the second temple destroyed, I know that the third and final temple will be built. And the story gives me the chills. And so he was able to tap in to the message of hope and to really see the good within the bad. And so the rabbis, they were so impressed by his level of like, understanding and by his optimism and positivity in a devastating situation that they recognized that he was indeed their teacher as well. So them going to him in Bnei Brak is a very symbolic and very meaningful thing. And it's not just like a by the way. And then so when we read in the Passover Haggadah, we might not necessarily know that these rabbis were Rabbi Akiva's teachers, but that they came to him. And so the prophecy is Odi Shama Bahara Yehuda. And so it's like in the future, in a time to come, that the mountains of Judah will rejoice. Kol sason v'kol simcha, kol chatan v'kol kala, and we say it at weddings because the reason why we crush a piece of glass at a wedding is to remember the destruction of Jerusalem, because our joy is not complete until the third temple is rebuilt. So we're always remembering that. We're always remembering Jerusalem. We're always remembering that the hope for the future of an even greater joy. So I thought that was a very beautiful story and a very like nice connection between the story in the Talmud and the story in the Haggadah and putting them together. And there's so many more connections and deeper meanings that we could spend a whole lifetime learning all of the scriptures that I just mentioned and really understanding and putting together the various different stories and pieces of the puzzle. So one more piece of just practical advice for Passover. The first 2 days of the holiday are they're similar to Shabbat, and on Shabbat we don't light a fire. So when we light the candles on the first night, we also need to light a 24-hour candle, because on the second night you need to light the candles from an existing flame. And the same thing for the last 2 nights of the holiday. So make sure that you light on the first night, in addition to your candles for the holiday, ner neshama, or like a 24-hour candle, so that you can light the second night from an existing flame, and then again at the end of the holiday. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you share this story at your Passover Seder and during the holiday, so that your family and friends can also gain this insight and this message of hope and this like looking forward to the future in an optimistic way. Okay, happy Passover. Bye-bye.